All right, I'm going to call to order the Finance and Audit Committee meeting on June 1st, 2021. It is 3:03, and I'm reading the statement of announcement. The meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the June 1st, 2021 Finance and Audit Committee meeting was distributed on May 27th, 2021 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. The public has been notified. The accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance. Barry, can you hear? So
I can hear what you're saying through the phone, and I can see you in a paused way in that room, but I cannot. But it's not.
Right.
Not going through correctly. I don't know if I'm a part of that team or not.
No, that is how these meetings work with this new system. You can't be a part of the meeting virtually. You have to dial in for the meeting to participate in it as a commissioner. Supposedly they're going to evolve to the way that it used to be, when we could see each other on screen. But right now, this system of Teams does not allow us to see each other, just hear. You all talk to each other through the cameras. You can hear through the phone, only see through the camera in the room.
I don't see my camera right now either.
Right, you don't have you don't have a camera with this right now. It's not an option with this version of Teams. So we can talk about it later, but the audio is what you can only do for this meeting right now.
Okay, all right. So we got
listening and talking.
Anyway.
Okay, so.
Okay. All right.
So.
And I guess we just have to talk this way.
Yes, we will. But you can see me, right?
Well, see, right now I have you on pause because if I play you, you gotta catch up to wherever you are.
Well, it's fine. You don't. It's just do the audio right now. Don't worry about the screen. It's it doesn't matter really. Okay, so
I gotta come out of there, and I'm just gonna have to I'm gonna have to do it over the phone. I mean.
Okay, there's no.
Something's gotta give here, but anyway, okay.
Yeah, there's no purpose of you doing it on the computer because you can't talk through the computer.
Right, I can't talk to you, so that makes a difference. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to call the order and we'll go from here.
Yes, I did, and I read the statement of announcement.
Okay.
And now we're on to the adoption of the agenda. And
okay, well, I have no problem with the adoption of the agenda.
Okay, so since it's me and you, then the agenda is adopted as written.
Right.
Next item, review the minutes. I'd like to approve the minutes from the May 4th, 2021 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Do you have any changes or edits to those minutes, Barry?
No, ma'am, it's fine.
Okay, so
I approve, so
okay. They're approved. Yep. All right, so the first item for Pat Malley to talk through are the contracts over 200,000, item number 5. Do you have any changes or edits to? Hold on a second.
We're actually waiting.
That was just a delay of an audio, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
We started this report last month. I think this week we're going to file one right here, and hopefully if the commission likes the format, we'll just keep using it. Um,
Can you hear Pat? Okay, Barry?
Yeah, good.
Okay.
okay, and this report identifies the 6 areas that are in the executive limitation policy of which the commission wants to check apprised of either making a decision on the financial transaction or at least being reported. So I'll start with the first one, new non-service contract over 200,000 or greater. We have 3 of them, and I'll discuss each one, and I'll give you my recommendation whether or not it should go to the commission. And again, my threshold was just materiality, and then you guys decide, and then we'll color code it for the commission. The first one is an existing contract that was executed on April 9th, and 4 vendors were qualified for a $250,000 5-year contract with direct support professionals. This solicitation, a 5th person wants to be added to the pending contract. So even though the pending contract, basically, with this person is, if this person is awarded a contract, it'll be for $250,000, but in reality, it will be they and 5 other people will be able to be provided services based on DSN's own discretion, whether we want to hear from them and have a $250,000 cap. And I think this will be a routine, regional standard type contract, adding a qualified provider. So I recommend that we approve it, and I believe this is the type of transaction that we kept at the community level at the same time.
Right. Okay. Let's see the next one.
But the next one, which I think is explained here, I'm going to say it both ways.
Okay.
We currently have a 1-year contract for approximately $250,000, of which we competitively solicit people involved in essentially outreach and training. And if you look there, there's a long list of things that we're trying to accomplish. And a lot of these pertain to, many of them pertain to requirements in our waivers that family outreach, family communications, education. And so we outsource these every year. We've been outsourcing this 5 year. I think it predated me. But we're now moving to a more formal competitive contract. And so last year we did it for the first time. It was a 1-year contract. What we want to do this year is compete it, but have a 5-year contract so that it will ease the burden of procurement each year. And so it's a 5-year contract with 4 1-year renewals. So the potential contract for the 5 years is $1.25 million. We'll spend a $250 million this year. We don't have to, but we generally do. And the actual training requirements, policy and students will develop those requirements, and we're the ones that solicit for it. And they're the ones that try to tailor approving the solicitation to meet their needs.
So these are the vendors that serve the boards, like what, like how many?
They tend to be traumatic brain injury, associations of national groups that are advocates for the population to serve. And they end up with training.
So, and these are for folks that are with the boards or for private, like, what's the, like, how?
I think that, again, I would have to get to policy people, and that's one of the reasons why we probably should bring to the commission, because they are soliciting for, here are the general things that we want: outreach tools, families, communications with people they serve, as well as families, as well as general community. And people make proposals, and then in a competitive way, they're selected. Each one is a little bit different. They focus on a little bit different target group.
Right.
And in the years past, the commission has had questions as to what's the value, who we're targeting. And so the other areas, I think, actually, subject matter experts, that's communicated with. And that's why I think if you approve this at the committee level, it does leave some level of I guess, probative question as to who you're serving and value of contracts. Historically, they've been well received. I know in 19 myself, the entire executive staff, with all our contracts. We got rid of a lot, but we kept these because we thought it was very cost-effective outreach in the community, as opposed to, we would probably have to do many of these things ourselves, our own FTEs, if we did not have these groups doing the outreach. So it is a little more complicated.
There's really, well, there's really two reasons why I would want this, I think, to go to board of commission. One is it's a 5-year contract with a 1-year renewal, so, that would make it one reason that I would lean towards that. And also, this is not just a vendor contract, or something like that, so I would say this is the commission approval here.
I agree with that.
I would, Ed, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. All right. Just let me know if you can't, hear me or Barry, or Pat during this meeting. Okay, so, I might follow up with just some questions after this meeting.
Sure.
About this particular, these particular contracts and, but yeah, I agree that we can bring this is one that definitely comes to the commission.
And get more detail on the specific requirements.
Especially for, the next meeting. So, okay, so the next item, Ed, we are looking at, agenda item number 5, which is contracts over 200,000. We are going through the list, of those contracts and, just kind of talking about them. So now we're on to the third item, which is C under 9, service contracts 200,000 or greater. Pat?
Should we make a motion or say that without objection, this is gonna go, this last one's gonna go for commission?
Well, I think we want to, I wanted to listen to the last one and then I was going to make a motion about all, have someone.
Okay, go ahead, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
The last one is a 5-year contract, and it's a new contract that's replacing a current 5-year contract that's expired. And its estimated value is $2.5 million for the 5 years, and it pertains to providing linen service for written and video solutions. So it's a large dollar, but for routine.
So, this would go out for bids, I thought the invitation for bid, that's what that means.
Yes.
Okay. For renewal periods. Okay, so this one is obviously, the providers would be approved, of the potential vendors would be approved by the state procurement office, right?
Yes.
That we'd be selecting from, and then,
This is a little different. We're not qualified to provide. Whoever gets this contract is going to provide the services. This is it's a contract, and whoever wins it is going to have the $2.5 million contract. So it's not going to be qualifying and then we decide later. Is that correct?
Correct, and then typically we probably do it in lots, so lot A, lot B, since we have 2 different locations, so it could be potentially 2 vendors instead of just 1 vendor.
all right. All right, Barry or Ed, you have any questions on that particular, item? Okay, Barry?
No, that's just, which to me being example of the routine of the kids.
Yeah.
So I would, anyway,
Okay, so, all right, Pat, anything else that we need to talk about? There's another one in there for individual.
Back to the next category. But this is the
Okay.
category 1.
All right, so under category 1, I think, Barry, if you want to make a motion to bring the Family Support Network, item B, to the commission for formal approval, and we'll let items A and C on our document for the direct support professionals and the linen contract for the Whitman and Midlands to be, approved at this level and not brought to commission. You can make that motion
Yeah,
then.
that would be my recommendation, and then when we're at the commission meeting, it'll be a different color, is that correct? Did we say it was gonna be color coded,
Yes.
and the other two would be a different color than the one?
Yeah. Green versus yellow. We're gonna do green, yellow. So,
Okay, whatever you do.
yeah. So,
Okay, that's what my motion is, and so,
all right,
that's the way those three would go.
okay. So Ed,
Second motion.
all right. So motion's approved, to, as stated, and, one will go to the commission. Okay. So, meeting approval. Okay, so the next item,
The next item is existing service contracts. If they increase in $200,000 or greater, and it has to do with increase in bids as opposed to our individual's choices, we have to notify you of $200,000 increase. And it's doesn't require a vote, it's just with a notice you obviously.
right,
This is a situation that's been going on. Lucas has been dealing with this for over a year. We have individuals placed at well back, which is our, it is a facility run by a private company, and it's a secure location.
right, right.
Community options has scoped out our individual serve there, and a lot of people are there because people feel like they can serve.
Right,
Well, community options identified 4 individuals at Wellpath. They will serve in CTH2 environment. And so what we want to do is increase community options, their capacity by 4 beds, so they can go to CTH2. It will take these 4 people out of Wellpath, where we are paying $460 a day state funds with no Medicaid reimbursements for an annual cost of $671,000. And now, because they're in that environment, they're not in the living. So we're going to move them over into CTH2, and we will then get them IDR and waiver for residential services, so we get the list of the Medicaid that the state funds will now drop to $120,000 goes to $670,000.
right,
And I think once they land there, they will be landing there as H's. And these are individuals who probably will qualify for a higher setting, but community options is currently not certified for our highest setting.
right.
And so they're in the process of filling out the paperwork. Once they qualify, make a justification. I think they put anything else in the next level, just $320. But it would be.
Less than the motion. Right,
And it'd be a better environment as opposed to building a race environment. So it's a notification, you don't have to vote on it.
okay,
If you felt there's a problem with it, you can engage it,
right.
but that's the purpose of us reporting.
And how often do these types of things happen?
Rufus has been working on that list. I'd say maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, we had like 28 to 30 there, and now we're 15. I'm slowly getting them out of there, so community. And normally, I mean, when you open up CPH2 bed without any legislative appropriation, that's forever. We got to keep on funding that. But this funding source is well back. But internally, we've got to keep that well back cap going down. We can't turn our head and go 30 million.
Is that TV supposed to go off? Is this, is,
Is everybody, does the IT director know we have a beat in the summer?
well, good beat now. So,
It just quit, yeah.
yeah,
So anyway,
so it's
so we're saying there's 16 people that currently get, 16 more people that currently get served this way after we take these 4 out.
Ricky's been working down a list of about 30 people through the last 2 years or so, and I was asking him how often this happens when we have to like look at these types of things, and that's what he was saying, that Rufus, has been working on a list of about 30 people, and now it's more like 16 because he's been able to, find options for them, that do get, Medicaid match as opposed to.
Yeah, that's an astounding amount of money to pay that to pay without Medicaid matching.
So that was the gist of that explanation. And it's really just an update on this change because it goes over, 200.
Their contract.
200,000.
Yeah, so he's just letting us know that this is a shift that's happening with money involved, people with different lives really, so. So it was informational, and if we don't have any questions on that, then, anything else, Pat, on the 200,000 and greater contracts? Okay. All right, so we're gonna move to the next agenda item. You guys don't have any, questions or input on that? Number 6, we're under directives, and I'll turn that over to Pat. We can talk through these as well.
Okay, we have 2 audit directives. They're essentially the same audit directives, with the exception of one pertains to boards, one pertains to private providers, and certainly the private provider, because they don't calculate them all that. Less requirements in the audit directive, but it's the same one and words of both. The draft was prepared and we sent that out to vet approximately maybe 4 weeks ago. We got results just prior to the last commission meeting. There was some thought about it, but there was a lot of feedback on it. Really focused on 2 significant areas. And so we took time to go through it. And what I did, I prepared a memo just walking through who provided you the feedback. And then I gave you the bigger issues. And then, unlike a lot of feedback, nobody commented on sentence or paragraphs, but there were concepts. And so let me just walk through the concepts and we'll get as detailed as you want to. We had 3 individuals, 2 executive directors, and 1 board member make general comments about the increased costs from increased sampling for Medicaid billings and agreed upon procedure report. And 1 of these 3 had just questions about the new clients. Our main feedback came from 2 sources. 1, we had a residential provider's financial manager who has a great depth of knowledge. I really respect the opinion, and the financial manager's issues were, I thought the 10% sampling was excessive, which I agree to, and I gave them no reasons for that. We have 3 reports due in the fall for boards. Cost report's due on September 30th. The ROAC is due on October 31st, and then the audit report on October 31st. And we decided to put all 3 of them together on October 31st, just to simplify filing, as well as it's a little unfair, in my opinion, to ask for the cost report first, because the cost report has to tie to the financial statement. And the financial statement has 30 more days to be turned in, and probably most of the reason for it, if the putting together is that cost report is sitting at the back up. It really isn't, have them spend some 30 days quicker when this is going to sit for us to do. So I think all 3 together is eases the burden on providers, doesn't cause us any harm, and it simplifies us receiving the reports in just voting precedent. I felt like that needs to be changed. Those questions about the GASB 4, which I think heard at the finance meeting earlier, it's a challenge for providers to implement. And everybody's kind of wrestling with what to do, and we should put other schedules in our financial statements, and after all my research, I made a determination that if we continue to implement rental rates, we need to let the CPAs help to implement GASB 4 on their clients. Because its impact on us, it's not going to affect the state's SCAPper, it doesn't know what's a SCAPper. And our impact, these are fiduciary things. I think when all gets said and done, are going to be some level of disclosure in the financial statements. And there was some inference that some revenue or expenses, or maybe even assets, could be coding with basic operating statements. And I find it hard to believe that it's possible. All my point is that if that happens, they have to adequately disclose the notes for schedules. So they can figure that out. So, there are a lot of discussions about it. Nobody said, do it, not do it. But I felt like it would make an impact on us to take affirmative steps to provide more guidance. There was
I didn't hear what you said about providing more guidance. What are we doing? What are you saying?
they were looking for more guidance on how to implement it or structure, making standard schedules in the financial statement. And,
Okay.
and I said, I don't think that's a good idea because it's very complex. There's a lot to be worked out about it, a lot, especially in the implementation phase. And that's the role of CPAs and providers to prepare financial statements and have them be consistent with audit with accounting statements. So, we're just not going to get into that loop despite them wanting us to do something of which they cannot really quite articulate what they want us to do. There was a chart in the ROAC template that required a lot of data to fill out, and it was more background information, and it didn't really do any testing, and I agreed to eliminate that chart. So, and they want someone to room and board schedule out of the financial statements. Several reasons why I disagreed with that. Room and board has caused this agency problems a number of times, and by having it in the financial statements schedule, it forces both management to, it forces management to prepare the statement in timely fashion before the financial statements are finalized. At the same time, when they prepare it, they have to prepare it in a way that ties to the financial statements. One of our biggest issues that goes along with that was when they were doing their room and board calculations, which they generally turn in December, early January, they weren't tying it to the financial statement. So if you don't tie it to the financial statement, you have nothing to tether it to, a hard audit facts. So it's better, in my opinion, to keep them together. This was introduced last year by Chris. I think it was a great idea. I think we would maintain it. And I explained to them that I see no reason why I take that. Right. The CPAs have the same general, not they won't say the same way, but same general issues. And one director sent in a one-page letter, just talking about the overall administrative burden about audits and ROAS and oversight tools. And they attached CPA letter, which obviously is one of the CPAs. So, as I'll just summarize what I changed, the main changes were we removed the 10%, restrict the 10% sampling, and we're going back to a standard that is used for agreed upon procedures, which lets the CPAs use a risk-based approach to develop their sample size. What we've done to mitigate, I looked at 10 of the ROAS, felt like 9 of them samples okay, and one was bad. So I think what we want to do is just, when we get next year, we find someone who's understandable and who's addressed them individually. But in order to kind of mitigate it in our template, we added one more schedule, which required the CPA to itemize each billing they tested by category, such as CPH2, SLP1, A program. And the reason why that's important is, even though they did a lot of testing, it was provided in kind of narrative format, and it was not clear. I felt like there was testing done, had some volume, but nobody said 79. And, so it takes out the ambiguity of how much they actually tested, so that if somebody is under testing, they will stick out like a sore thumb. Secondly, when we get this data, we can aggregate it across all the providers that are reported, and so we can get a statewide risk assessment. In the past, we've not done that. Not analyze the data at all. So that schedule provides a control to incentivize CPAs to the test, and also gives us an ability to get over system. And I put all three reports together at the same timeline, October 31st, and I talked about that issue. If you look at each of the two people that represented comments that can do it. My motto on these things is if someone's going to take the time to really like sound feedback and their recommendation is marginally better than something I'm not.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I also heard from two providers as well on this topic, particularly with 10% sampling in burden. So I agree with their insight on assessment of the changes based on feedback. And I mean, I think we appreciate when people take the time to read these directives, see how it will ultimately impact them and give us feedback on it. Because, you know, we don't always write things that, you know, there are unintended consequences sometimes when we write things, and not, you know, thinking through it, with a little bit more insight and some ideas on how it ultimately affects a provider. I think it's important for us to consider those. So I support your changes, and I don't know a lot more detail. I don't know if Barry or Eddie have any questions or want to spend some more time on this today. But we need
I don't have any more right now, I'll have this matter, I don't think.
Okay. Okay. So do you need a approval from us, right, to approve the directives?
Approve these and forward them to the commission.
Okay, all right. So, can someone make a motion to?
I make a motion that we approve 27504DD and 27506DD to be brought before the commission for approval at the next commission meeting in June.
Second.
Great. All right, so these two directives are approved, and will be brought to the commission. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, cost reports update, item number 7.
We have fiscal year 13 completed, cost report, fiscal year 14 completed, fiscal year 15 mid-June, fiscal year 19 could be sooner. Maybe by the end of next week. And I sent you just what I used as an initial analysis, and I guess I'm gonna take this as a minute. I know
Is it in the packet or is it just something?
it was in the packet, and I sent you another email,
Okay.
and the email.
I saw that.
I'll give you mine. And if Ed and Barry don't have it, I'll explain it to them and make them look at the email later. But we talked a lot about cost settlements, and here's an opportunity to take 4 minutes to really emphasize a point. And the point I'm trying to make is we have cost reports that identify our costs. The next step is to get the Medicaid revenue billable for that same year. We're running numbers downstairs that show us approximately what it is. But at the end of the day, HHS will use their numbers. And we've asked them for those numbers, and they sent most of 13 over, and they're working on the rest. So we really have to wait for the numbers to finalize it. But I know my own personal curiosity is I got to understand what that liability is, so that we know
Right.
what our risk is. So we're going to keep on hammering on ours, but it can't be complete until they send those numbers across. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you look at that, Mr. Blackwood is, I just put down an example for fiscal year 13. And what it shows is, what it shows is
I have it on that.
the cost that we have for 13 is $447 million. The example I used was Medicaid billings for $430 million, which means we have $7.5 million excess costs to the system, which means, guess what? We under the old two-way settlement, HHS would write us a check for $7.5 million. That's a two-way settlement.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. In fiscal year 2013, this very first year, they went to a one-way settlement. And if you look at that, you can see, even though we net $7.5 million excess cost in the system, anything that we net positive, the state of South Carolina says, well, thank you very much for contributing that to the cost, but we're not paying for it. Anything which is negative, we have to pay out. So under a one-way settlement, we would have to pay 2.7 million. So the two-way settlement, they write a check for 7.5 million. So the point I'm trying to make is, prior to 2013, that's like a $10 million swing every year that we have exposed ourselves. And when you run a capitated system, where we encourage providers to use money between different buckets of cost settlement, we're setting ourselves up for it. This is one of the main reasons that we have to get out of the capitated model, and we won't have this cost settlement risk. So we're gonna keep on hammering on our own internal numbers. I don't want to give you any number until I finalize it with HHS, but I do believe, you know, if I look at 13 from what I know now, it's going to be, there's no $10 million risk out. If anything, it's, you know, if I had to guess 2 to 5, it would be my guess, and it could go down, it could go up depending on what HHS helps us with some of these adjustments. But my point is, once we get the cost report, we still have to get the negative revenue side of it. And I'll give you our estimates, but for example, and I believe HHS has a superior computer system to ours, and they sent theirs a very, very compelling, well organized. And I think it matched up well, but they had another schedule of adjustments that had negative $2 million investments. We had no record of their investments. They could be pay increases that were retroactive to July 1st. Could have ultimately affected that. So there's a lot of those nuances, but we're just not going to have a final number to sit with them. I think they have the capability to run those numbers and they're running them for us. But in the intermediate, we're going to run our own numbers, and I'll give you something that I won't say public if you and I together. But until they come with those numbers, it's hard for us to commit to what we think the liability is. So,
When did they promise when they were?
They got us 13 pretty quick, all but a couple of components. And we'll meet with them again tomorrow, actually. I think they're in the same position as all. They're slammed. And we're getting to the 13, 14, and 55. It's not higher on the priority, but I think we can tell them, we got to understand our liability, which is important to us. Because if there's a huge liability, we're going to sue that later. But people came with the cost of that. We had that done in 19 this time. 13, 14, 15 is just a cost allocation, because the costs back then are so big that it helps understand their business. But 19 is fresher. Actually, it's the year before COVID. It's really going to have value to us as to what is going on with the cost in our system.
Right. I think that ranges.
And it will be helpful. It will be helpful if it comes out as we expect. I just want to give you an update, and because that two-way, one-way settlement is probably one of the most important reasons of our financial problems in the last 7 years. Because we kept on operating as a one-way settlement, like today here we're talking fiscal year 15, we gave out a lot of rent.
Right.
On the two-way settlement, we push grant money out, it's expended through the cost reports, guess what? We get money back. Under a one-way settlement, we push money out, it still gets expensed through the cost report, but when it's over, when it's excess, we get the money. So the grants in the past were very wise things to do, because ultimately it would trickle through the cost reports and we would get paid. In the current environment, if we put them out and they don't, if they expend the likelihood is they would be excess costs, which will get another input. So that's just an update here.
Okay. Y'all have any questions? Move to the next item. Barry, were you going to say something?
It's kind of a new point to talk about two-way settlement, because that's going and going.
It's gone,
I
yeah.
mean, that left with the last horse, the last of all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is going, and we gotta work on people service so we don't have these problems more. And we don't, and the biggest thing we have to worry about is how much time we're gonna have because of the situation, but
Yeah.
anyway, we all don't know what our problems are, but we got to, but that's just 1 year, that we're talking about 2 to 5.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't have as much money as we think we have right now, but go ahead.
Okay. All right, go to item number 8, which is the Human Service Provider Association gap funding request.
Tyler Rex of Thrive asked us to bring that at this committee meeting.
Yeah.
And, I thought they did a great job in explaining themselves and how they was collecting the commission meeting. And when I look at these 4 top areas, expert cost and residential issues, expert cost and aid programs, case management, early intervention, they make the case for that.
Yeah.
And then capital needs. And their capital needs is, they make a number of requests. I'm not saying they all have some of them there, but I think I think these blend right into looking at that system-wide needs between our capital reserves and the 10%. I think they get factored in the next 2 or 3 weeks after the commissioners have their listening sessions around the state. The staff starts developing a number of ideas, particularly looking at production. So we get some ideas as to what other southern staff. I don't know about that, other than one of many good ideas, and certainly we have all.
How much would it cost per year to fund one waiver slot? Pat?
One residential waiver spot, like a Band-Aid, should be $100,000, and that would cost us, in a non-COVID world, 30% match, $30,000 for one residential slot.
Okay.
I think the average non-residential waiver slot is, I've lost track of that, I don't get that, I think I'm gonna say, it's 14 or 15 for the IDRD and maybe 9 or 10 for the CSW waiver, the average item waiver.
So it's about, one's about 25, one's about 30. Is that what you said?
No, in 100% dollars, not doing the max issue. A band G is 82,000 and the band H is $100,000 a year for CPH2. And for at home, non-residential, the average IDRD at home person is probably 14 or 15. Again, I have to get the number straight, but.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And it's about, it's less for the CSW, I would say 9 or 10.
Okay, well, that just seems to me to be a very good way to consider using some of the excess money we're gonna have, because that would get the waiting list in.
And it would be matched.
And it's also very impartial. What worries me about this situation, it looks good on paper, and kudos to the Service Provider Association and all that, but it really is not it's really not a very impartial document to look at. I mean, it really gives preferential treatment to some people over others, and that really bothers me. But anyway, I can get into details of the different things on this thing, but I don't think that we need to do that today.
So if we were to say that we think, like, if we look, for example, under residential issues, and it's listed, several, reasons and ideas on how to use that money in residential issues. So, their stated recommendation, for example, for that one is to provide gap funding to address overtime, recruitment of staff, some on bonuses, vaccination bonus, hero pay for existing staff. If we were to say, the commission would say, that's where we want to support them right now, with this money, how would that really implement it? I mean, what would we, how would we do that?
I think we have a couple of choices. And logistically, if you say, I want to give, just go along with it. We we're gonna recognize there are shortages in some capital needs and stuff. And we want to dedicate X number of dollars. You could do a grant, a grant based on the size of the residential people that serve.
Right.
You could add state dollars to the rate. And, we can get the money once we have a decision, but the decision would be, this would be a state funded, we will not get matched for this.
Right.
But it's a need that we could get.
So this, anything with residential, you're saying is not matched. So are all these things not matched?
The only way you get matched is if you are adding new services or, adding new services. I think one of the questions I saw in like Commissioner Malpass, if we add more people to the rate list, the new slots, the new services, they would be matched.
That's right.
If we, in the CMS document, there's some language in there about increasing rates, that'd have to be a permanent rate increase, it could be a temporary rate increase. We just can't increase rates to get to match. But if there was ever a time for HHS to consider a residential rate increase, it would be now, because the rates are good. We have state match here and match. So, but we're talking tomorrow, and the General Assembly is.
I have no problem with raising rates, that's what we're after, so but that's fee for service, this is not, grants are not fee for service, grants are the old system in a new way, in a new word. So there's a big difference in those two things.
Right, but there's money that we need to get to the providers with FMAP. Right?
Yeah, it depends on how, yeah, absolutely, it depends on how you do it and what they're funded for, and what.
Right, which is what we have to
So
determine.
that was always in the details, and the question is, how do you fund everybody? I mean, is it fair to fund some without funding others?
Right, and
And if
his
you fund
point,
everybody, that costs more money, so you have to take money out of a certain area, out of a pot in order to get more for everybody. And I mean, like I say, I don't need to get into the details of which one, some of them I don't have a problem with on this list, but some of them I do have a problem with. And, but the biggest problem I have overall is it really fair to do just these that we're talking about on this list? Because the psychoanalytic service providers are worried about psychoanalytic service providers, they're not worried about other providers.
right,
And
well,
so,
they
is it really
represent,
fair to worry about them without worrying about the others?
right,
And that's a big problem that they could have for many years of being impartial toward one provider over another.
and we are welcoming any provider to reach out to us, to let us know what they want. Right? I think we are. So I encourage people,
Generally, yes, but I mean,
I encourage
when they
people
do, then you have to say, well, if we're gonna give all this to one, we need to give all of it to them all.
Well,
But anyway,
Pat's point was to process requests that we approve with the grant system.
There's a number of ways to do it.
I mean, that's one way.
Yeah.
To your point, how do we make it fair? How do we make it equitable? How do we give everybody a chance to apply for the grant? If we go that route, that is, in my opinion, one way to do
yeah,
it.
if you've got, the thing is, if you've got, in a hypothetical basis, if you've got, 10 people you decided to grant $10,000 each to, and then 5 days later, you had 3 other people that you decided they deserve the grant too, that makes it 13. So you don't have 13 anymore, so now we give everybody 8 instead of giving everybody 10. So the more people that we include, the less money everybody's gonna get. But that's the way it ought to be, because that's to me, the fairest way to do it. You can't just decide, well, this person's part of the Service Provider Association, so we're gonna give them more money than somebody else. That's not the way it should be. And that's why I love fee for service, because we don't have this problem anymore. They rate, and they get their money, and that's that.
Right,
But
we have,
the best way to do this is to increase the rate somehow. That's the best way to do this, but that and to me, and the 100% best way is to do as many slots as we can, because that's increasing the amount of people served, and that's the point. But anyway.
right, but we also need to address the challenges that providers have felt in the last year, which is why we have this money. So it's a delicate balance, and we are wanting to hear from people to see what's the best use of spending this money.
It seems to me like a lot of this stuff should have been covered under a 10K, or at least it was told to us that it was. And now they need more money for certain things, but that's again getting into details that I don't know if we want to get into right now.
Right.
But I'm not sure why some of this stuff was already covered by 10K. But I'd have to find out.
Maybe Pat can share some insights on that and remind us what happened with it.
I think we're all being saturated with needs.
Yes.
And then some needs are more obvious than others, like they programmed at 50%.
Right,
If they still have large losses, they have, startup, that would be, to me, the higher priority than something else. It doesn't mean the other ones get nothing.
right.
You may collectively want to have some sort of, baseline, there's a number of ways we can skin the cats. It
Well,
all gets down to setting priorities, short-term and long-term.
well, I mean, I think staffing issues are huge right now. They're huge across our country, across every sector of business, and especially our providers who are serving our consumers. They need good quality workers to take care and support our individuals. And if that is an area where we can help support our providers, I think we should strongly consider that.
That's one of the things on here I didn't have a problem with.
So
But
we need to hear from more people, to your point, Barry, more than just the Human Service Providers Association.
that's right.
And, we want to be fair, and we want to, maximize this money the best way possible. And I think, certainly more slots is going to be very much supported by our commission. I would imagine that, but, we want to look at, what the needs are and hear from as many people and try to make the best decision as a commission.
Ultimately, I think it's gonna be a separate committee, right? On our commission that's gonna decide this, right?
Well,
And then what we decided last month?
we decided we were going to do some community outreach, where we could hear from our constituents and providers and, people to weigh in on this. And then, I don't remember specifically a committee, but I think we did that.
Maybe we were considering a committee, but I can't remember now exactly, I'll put back the notes, my notes, but I think we were considering a committee, or if we were gonna create a committee, but we hadn't decided yet, I don't guess on that, I just brought it up, sorry, go ahead.
That's good.
Chair,
Yes,
you will be hearing from Ron in reference to this as well.
okay,
So he and I had a conversation today about that, so you
Okay.
will be getting some recommendations to him and others.
okay,
And we need to seriously take their
yeah.
recommendations under serious consideration.
Is there, a deadline, Pat, that you have to make a decision on this?
There's a written deadline, and then there's things that always last a lot longer than deadlines.
Right, because it was a federal.
When the CMS guidance came out on May 13th, it said 30 days. We're meeting with HHS tomorrow for the first time, our strategy, because they will send the state strategy in, which we're a part of. So
Okay,
we'll know how part of that 30-day deadline is. I can't, just my guess is, for the level of detail here,
right.
we have to have more time for the processes, or we're going to criticize for being rushed. So,
Absolutely.
so I think
Okay.
we're lining up we have 7 providers in each district that we're ready to go. After tomorrow's meeting, we will then figure out when we have to start. And if there's no gun to our head, I'm thinking we can advertise by the end of this week and then give people a week process. And then between the 15th and the 30th of June,
Absolutely.
have the commissioners hit the 7 places. That's just very tentative. HHS could give us a better timeline.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll have something for you Thursday.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the internal audit report. Brian?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner Alpert, Commissioner Brian Naney, I make y'all report for Appreciation Day.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, some of the rollout reports, we have 40 boards, I think the 32 of the boards, eight are in process at various stages. Some requiring a credit match plan. There's also 47 QPL providers. Completed 24 of those reviews and 21 in the process. One had an extension at the end of yesterday. They have 5 business days after they exceed the deadline. There's one that had a fiscal year date of March 31st. That's not due to June 30th. It's not due yet. The assessment fees we talked about last month. I've added 1 cent last month, it's 14,052 last month. The net total of $14,700. That's our late fee assessment for FY 2020. I expect we'll release one more coming forward now. We received that financial report last week. And that's going to be another $2,500. And then do the gave me take to January 31st. So that's going to raise it. $200. And still working on that. As far as our current projects in process right now, we have a lot going on environmental modifications in the Haskell area. We have a lot going on in the church services, REI services.
Yeah.
And then, another audit in IT, IT area. And then an audit in reach service contact system. Any questions on any of those?
No, I think, I appreciate the update and, I can't think of anything specific, on any of these items. I know the interpreter services one has been going for a little while. I think I found a lot of things in the initial, report.
Ain't like it was on.
Yeah, and, we need to do some more digging and looking into some other things about that, so that's good, because I don't think that's ever been looked into in some while. All right, well, any questions, Barry or Eddie for Brian? Okay,
I have none, but
all right, okay, thank you.
except it was nice to meet you, Brian, at the employee appreciation, and I hope to make it again next year, man.
Thank you very much, and that's what you do.
Thank you. All right, Pat, this CFO report?
I just have one item I just want to make you aware of, because these are I think some of the directives that we've been going through for the last year, I think we're getting to the tougher ones now. And we're looking at the capital grant directive, and our current capital grant directive talks about actively seeking capital grants, meeting aside, making capital grant determinations. It also talks about providers have to report to us anytime they have a capital expenditure, even though we don't fund it, they have to, get our approval and provide us with requirements. A lot of the old 1990 band system way of doing things are now starting to come to fruition. And when we look at something like that, and we started, we want to edit what we did before, but we're going to start from scratch. Because when we talk about capital grants, if we're going to do the service, we need it as an agency. And this is kind of, it's not radical, it's common sense, but it may startle people. When you're talking about capital grants, we need to have a policy that says basically, we need to make sure that the service rates incorporate capital requirements. So that way it's part of the rate.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're exposing ourselves to providers are like in this limbo where we used to do business this way, they give us capital. And now we haven't done it since 18 because we had the money. Now we got money. I think we have to clarify expectations that our intent is to get the rates to give you to be fund your capital. And we're going to make sure that the market rates have that capital. Because that's what the taxpayers of South Carolina want, because it's part of the monthly rate. So that's kind of a policy decision we have to make. I'm just kind of warming you up to think about it. State statute requires us to approve every county board's any loan they get. Well, we don't do that. We require this. When we start really squeegeeing through our directives and squeegeeing through state law, it was set up one way and we're moving to a different. So my point is, as we go through the directives, we're going to have to like commit to certain ways of doing business. And we're going to have to start writing provisos to go back and, stop some existing law that creates this parental approach to our board structure. And in fact, we're moving to a fee-for-service environment where we're trying to free them and liberate them so that, we have requirements that we're supposed to touch about every capital expenditure. I can assure you we're not that much about every capital expenditure. So our own directives put us in a position of non-compliance. And I'm saying all this is because when we start doing these directives, we're going to write very simple directives. This is what we do every time we get grants. Grants have to be transparent. They need to criticize about the Senate with the regular grants. They want us to be competitive. They want us to be transparent. So when we write these directives, it's really going to be important because it's going to show the way we're going to do business. I think we've tried to do business like that for the last 3 or 4 years, but now we actually have to take time to codify it. I think the provider network is, they know things have changed, but when we see it in black and white, it's going to be a little bit more for real. And I think we have to go to great lengths to make sure that we pursue every possible avenue, that the rates that we get equal for all the needs of the providers. And not do it in a way that we're building rates for providers who are government entities, and they don't have to make it. They do have to get, I don't want governments with money, but they have their surpluses in order to have rainy day funds that they just improve. So that's just a new model we're on to. And I just feel like that's going to be over and over. And I see all the directives coming downstream that we're in business. And I think that's I'm just kind of getting ahead of what I see. And it's not a change, but when you put it in black and white, people can see it. This is
Right.
a different way of going.
What's the average amount of money that we get in capital grants or we buy some capital
We haven't given,
grants?
we honor capital grants that were existing prior to 18, but we've done none since 18, based on the Senate request that we've been having them not. Now that we have money, I think the expectation is going to get raised again. And we have to be in a position with policies as to how we are moving forward. That's all I have.
That's it. Yeah, all the updates. Any questions, before we adjourn on?
Yeah, I'm sorry, one of the things that I wanted to ask is a question about the directives. I should have brought this up at that time. Shouldn't these directives be a part of the finance committee directives 807 that the main finance committee directives that we have now, which each individual committee has? Shouldn't this be a part of that committee's directive? Or should it?
For the boards and the service providers?
No, for the audit,
The audit
for the
policy?
policy that we're doing for the contract.
The $200,000 contract. I
The
think you're right.
$200,000 contract, shouldn't that be a part of 807
I
with
think
the finance committee procedure?
I think when we finally, everybody agrees to what it is, I think it needs to be codified there as a procedure of this committee that it's approved by the commission, that this is how we do business. I think that is for policy, when they built that 2-tier system of delegating to the state director, the board, pushing it up. So I think that is probably the way to go once we.
Okay.
We gotta prove it first, I know, and you gotta figure out exactly what words go there, but I just wanted it out there that it actually is a part of that procedure and not really a separate procedure, I don't think.
Okay. Got it. All right.
With a
Well, I think if someone wants to make a motion to adjourn, I think we're done for this meeting.
not sure, you said what the next meeting is, Robin.
July 6th, 2021.
So.
Okay,
Okay. So, Eddie says so moved, and,
second, for adjournment, time me,
sounds great. Okay.
we're adjourned whether you want to be or not.
That's right, 4:08. Thank you so much.
If you get a second for adjournment, you're done, whether you want to or not.
Okay. Thanks. Thank y'all.
Have a good night.
Bye. Okay, see you later.